Frontiersman Lucian Maxwell is trying to move up in life, from trading furs to trading land. He has dreams of making it big.
Get low! Get to cover!
But today, he just wants to make it home to his wife and family alive. Attacked by a band of Jicarilla Apaches, Maxwell has to take charge of a ragtag group of traders.
On your left!
But they are outmaneuvered, outnumbered, and outgunned.
If we can make it up that ridge, maybe we can hold them off till sundown. Everyone fire, then run. Now!
Lucian Maxwell has always been a survivor. But this may be the day his luck runs out forever. Among the rough-hewn mountain men of the West, Lucian Bonaparte Maxwell is a different breed.
Maxwell's parents sort of weigh him down with a pretty heavy handle, which is taken from the Napoleon family. But it's not a handle that he really embraces. It's not the handle of a person who's gonna live a hard life on the frontier.
He brought a certain level of sophistication to the mountains that was not shared by his contemporaries. But being an aristocrat was not a way to make friends in the far West. And so he just immersed himself in the culture and became one of the boys.
He was a great trader and middleman, and he would not have been able to do that if he did not have the diplomatic skills in knowing how to manage the relationship between the Indians, the Hispanics, and the white people.
Maxwell has this really unique ability to collaborate with native peoples pretty regularly, to wear a lot of different hats and have different feet in different worlds. But in times of trouble, he's proven that he can fight, he can defend himself and the lives of others.
In 1840, Lucian Maxwell is still young, but he's already a seasoned veteran of the frontier. Though he's the well-educated son of a prosperous family, he left home at 15 and headed west.
Tales of dashing and daring do on the frontier were common in almost every boy's life around this period in time. So Lucian Maxwell longs for the freedom and adventure afforded by the wild frontier.
See what you got, Mac.
Maxwell finds regular employment with the fur trader William Bent, whose fort is a key trading post in modern-day Colorado.
Moment of truth, Mac. 2 of clubs.
Nail that card.
You can do it. Nail it center.
Oh, yeah! How about that? All right.
Hey, it's not over yet.
Among the mountain men and Native Americans at Bent's fort, Maxwell earns a new education in frontier skills.
At Bent's Fort, Maxwell also gets to be very close with the local Arapaho peoples. He learns their culture and he learns their language. To have a close tie to a local tribe like that is incredibly important because they'll give him important intelligence throughout the rest of his life.
All right, come on, Lucian. You can settle this right now. Come on.
Jack of diamonds.
All right.
That's a clean card right there.
A good thought. Shine A, thick dog.
All right, come on, pay up.
Take it, dirty band.
Never bet against you again. You got that right. Hey, Mac, come on up to the storehouse. I'll send you down the trail to Taos, give you a few extra goods.
The fur trade gives Maxwell a taste of the adventure he craves. But times are changing, and he knows he has to change with them.
Maxwell comes to the fur trade late, and by this time it's transitioning into more of a trading world than a trapping world.
To make it as a trader, there's only one place to go: Taos, in the Mexican territory of New Mexico.
Taos had significance. Taos was like the big city.
Maxwell finds work with Taos's leading citizen, the French-Canadian merchant, Charles Beaubien.
Charles Beaubien marries into a very prominent Mexican family in Taos. He prospers through this marriage. He becomes an important merchant and enters into politics.
As you see, Mr. Beaubien, every item you ordered arrived undamaged. Tout va bien.
Maxwell soon becomes like a son to the wealthy merchant.
Good morning, Papa. I heard you got a new shipment of ribbons in from St. Louis.
Perhaps in more ways than one.
Come pick them out with me. You always know what looks best.
Hello, Luz. Ms. Beaubien.
Hello, Lucian.
Luz was a well-placed young woman in the frontier society of Taos, being the daughter of a prominent businessman and merchant. And so there were, advantages to this sort of arrangement. At the same time, Maxwell had a genuine affection for Luz.
Beaubien starts looking at this young fellow and thinking that here's a serious prospect for a son-in-law.
Maxwell's best friend in Taos is a man who will soon become a living legend, Kit Carson.
See, you're still sweet on Don Carlos's daughter.
Kit, I thought you were still in St. Louis.
Yep. Never like to stay in one place for too long.
By 1842, no one's writing dime novels about Kit Carson, but he's got a reputation as a hunter, as an explorer, and as a guide. He's proven already that he's a man of action.
Setting your sights mighty high, ain't you? A match like that'd take more dough than you can pile up clerking for her papa.
Yeah, well, there's more money here nowadays than in fur trade.
Well, a man shouldn't depend on his daddy-in-law's handouts.
Even though Maxwell is 9 years younger than Carson, Maxwell is 9 years older in terms of education and sophistication. And so this makes them sort of perfect partners.
Met me an Army fella in St. Louis, name of Fremont. He's looking for some tough rascals to help him map a few hundred miles of the Oregon Trail.
Well, that'd take a few months.
It will. I'm getting $3 a day as guide and hunter. Fremont says that he's looking for another hunter, and I told him that you're a crack shot, which you are.
Maxwell's really got a good thing going for him in Taos. He sees himself having a life there. But when Carson shows up and makes him an offer he can't refuse, it speaks to another part of his personality.
I'll start packing.
Maxwell and Carson set out on an expedition that will prove to be momentous, led by John C. Fremont.
John C. Fremont was a U.S. Army officer. He was a member of the Topographical Engineers. And Fremont has a number of expeditions that he takes out in the early 1840s that is mapping the West. And so he is describing America for America.
Fremont's first expedition in 1842 had the goal of mapping the Oregon Trail and exploring the Rocky Mountains in order to ascertain the possibilities for future American settlement in these areas.
The expedition has many mouths to feed, and Fremont relies on Maxwell and Carson's rifles to keep them full.
What he and Carson have to do is they have to go out on the prairie and look for bison. That sounds easy enough, but it's actually a very difficult type of hunting to do. First of all, you got to get close to a bison.
Fresh meat. Reckon this is where we start to earn our pay.
Something like that.
Let's go, Kit!
But the hunt is nearly cut short when Carson's horse takes a wrong step.
Rat dog varmint.
Thought you might want this.
Well, much obliged, Mac. Horse ain't worth much, but I paid $20 for this bridle. Come on.
Maxwell and Carson share a bond that can only be forged on the frontier. But they have to part ways when John Fremont divides the expedition at the forks of the Platte River. Fremont sends Carson up the North Fork, while he and Maxwell explore the South.
Once Carson splinters off on his own side trip, Fremont begins to really lean more on Maxwell.
Indians. Friendly?
We're on their hunting ground, Captain. How friendly would you be?
Cheyenne?
Hard to say. Captain, we gotta go.
You heard the man, let's move.
They sort of stumble their way into the midst of a bison hunt being done by a group of Arapaho.
Maxwell knows the Arapaho won't take kindly to strangers interrupting their hunt.
Let's head for those trees.
So they immediately try to look for cover, and they make a break for what looks like a stand of trees.
Fremont and Maxwell, they very quickly find themselves near a stream and they have to rein in. As they're trying to escape, they find themselves surrounded by dozens, perhaps more, of Arapaho warriors. And they're not really enthusiastic to see these men interrupting their hunt.
Dismount! We'll have to fight them here.
With nowhere to run, Maxwell has to prepare to go down fighting. Lucian Maxwell and John Fremont have stumbled into the middle of an Arapaho buffalo hunt.
Dismount! We'll have to fight them here.
And now, hundreds of Arapaho warriors are out for their blood.
This is just one of those moments where you are, to your mind, looking death in the face.
Hold your fire. They're out of range.
Tell you what, though, Captain. If I'm going, that big one in the front's going first.
And just as the Arapaho close in on their final rush towards Maxwell and Fremont,
Can't be.
Maxwell recognizes the lead Arapaho.
Hey! Gachi! Atnanea! Gachi! Atnanea!
The leader of the hunting party is a friend from Maxwell's days at Bent's Fort.
Despite the vast expanse that was the American West, that West often proved to be a small world indeed.
He's an old friend. Looks like he's a chief now.
Inaha! Dene ene!
If a person is leading a hunting party, his voice is the voice that is followed.
We just got in the way of their buffalo hunt. Once they're done, we're invited back to their village for a feast.
How do you say thank you?
Aho.
Aho.
If it hadn't been for the fact that Maxwell recognized this old friend of his, and that would have been the end of John C. Fremont and any of his subsequent expeditions.
Fremont's first expedition is a rousing success, making national stars of the Pathfinder Fremont and his guide, Kit Carson. But Maxwell is only looking for recognition from one person. Having built a reputation as a member of Fremont's expedition, Maxwell returns to Taos and marries Luz Beaubien.
You're leaving again? Where?
California.
But though he has found love and a chance to establish himself in New Mexico, his thirst for adventure has not been quenched.
What is in California?
Won't know till I get there. Kit and me are going with Fremont.
No, wait. We'll talk about it.
No, it's settled, Luz. I'll miss you. Something big's gonna happen, and I'm gonna be a part of it.
The hunter in him, the fighter in him, is drawn to Carson and drawn to Fremont. And he continues to take on these assignments with these expeditions and go back to the frontier.
Promise I'll be back. Swear it.
John C. Fremont's third expedition ventures to the edge of the continent, into the vast Mexican territory of California.
Fremont's third expedition in 1845 was intended to map the area called the Great Basin and also scout a potential route for a transcontinental railroad.
But as Maxwell, Carson, and Fremont traverse California, they become embroiled in a larger conflict, the Mexican War.
The primary cause of the Mexican War was a territorial dispute over Texas. These tensions eventually led to an armed conflict in 1846, when, by most accounts, President Polk helps to engineer a conflict along the Rio Grande and uses that as a pretense to attack Mexico.
Maxwell and the Fremont expedition help American settlers in their fight against the Mexican government.
Yeah, that's right.
He's done it!
Men like Carson and Maxwell were part of a generation that believed that America was going to ultimately seize California, spreading the Republic from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Pacific.
I suppose it won't be long till we see the American flag up there.
Fremont has another job for us.
A scout?
Fremont is installed as California's new governor.
Where to now?
And he sends Maxwell and Carson on an urgent mission.
You, me, and a few of the others are gonna ride out east. All the way, Mac. Spread word that California is about to be part of the US of A.
That's some job, Kit.
Yeah, well, we'll stop and see our wives on the way out before they forget what we look like.
Maxwell and Carson plan to cross the continent to Washington, D.C. in 2 months. But Maxwell hopes to stop in Taos to see his wife, Luz, for the first time in over a year.
How long till Taos?
About 3 days. Hold it.
Could be Navajo.
More than likely Apache. I figure we got 2 shots apiece before they're on us like flies. Skirmish line?
Skirmish line.
Maxwell and Carson have helped to change America's destiny. Now they prepare to face their final battle together against an unknown foe.
Could be Navajo.
More than likely Apache.
Frontiersman Lucien Maxwell and Kit Carson are on a mission to Washington, D.C. to deliver the news that America now controls California. But if the riders they encounter in New Mexico are hostile, it could be the end of their journey.
Hold on, Mac.
Hey! Hey there! American! Hey! Hey! American!
It's the Army of the West, led by Brigadier General Stephen Watts Kearny.
And they know who Kearny is. He's probably the best-known soldier in the American West, aside from Fremont.
But though Kearny's troops are a welcome sight, Carson's relief soon turns to disgust.
Almighty Brass Hat wants me to go all the way back to Los Angeles so he can replace Fremont. Well, I ain't doing that.
He can have you shot.
General Kearny and the Army are going out to California, and the troops are like, well, guess what, Kit Carson? We know who you are, and you know the way. So you're coming with us. Carson's like, well, no, I'm not. I'm supposed to take these messages and all this information back east.
We are Fremont's men.
And that's why you gotta go back. In case Kearny tries anything.
But Maxwell understands the stakes in a larger sense, in a political sense, than does Kit Carson.
Look, I'm sorry, kid. I had no choice.
These are men who are not accustomed to taking those precise types of orders. Had to be incredibly frustrating.
Get these dispatches to St. Louis. Reckon Fremont's family can get them to Washington. When you get to Taos, check in on my wife.
You know I will. I'm sorry, Kit.
Yeah. It's a tough thing, ain't it? Trying to help build the country.
Kit Carson's legend is based on this idea that he did things as a sort of rough-hewn frontiersman, but he did them on behalf of the United States.
Let's move out!
And whether he knows it or not, Maxwell is essentially securing Carson's lasting reputation in the frontier.
After delivering Fremont's dispatches, Maxwell returns home to Taos, now in the U.S. territory of New Mexico.
Maxwell, you can say, I went up the trail with John C. Fremont. I was part of this grand adventure, and now I'm going to sort of seek a place in society for myself.
What are you thinking about?
Everything. This year I'll be 30. Got to get into business with the Santa Fe Trail merchants. Get my own herd going. Build something our children can inherit.
Children?
Time to start building a family. And as soon as Kit stops playing soldier, he'll partner with us on the Riata. That'll be the start.
Riata is over the mountains to the east of Taos on the Santa Fe Trail. And so it's seen as a great position for a ranch and for a trading post.
But Maxwell's choice for a ranch and future settlement puts him in close contact with the Jicarilla Apache.
Apache, la Jicarilla.
Joining Maxwell on the Rayado is Jorge Galabes, a Mexican ranch hand who spent part of his life as a captive.
Jorge Galabis. He had been taken captive, perhaps by the Delaware. And when he kind of re-emerged, he became known as George or Indian George.
The Jicarilla got their name from the Spanish. It means basket maker, and it's after an occupation of the women of the tribe. They've been living there since time immemorial.
Letting them cut one of our cows avoids trouble. Let them.
This is their land, and they're going to defend it as best they can.
In the late spring of 1848, Maxwell travels 150 miles from home to his old stomping ground of Bent's Fort to purchase supplies.
Luz can use this when the baby's big enough to eat real food.
And so that you make it back for that, you got the latest from Mr. Colt. It's a .44 caliber. It's accurate up to 50 yards, but you might be able to take it to 80, maybe 100, Mac.
Some people want to go back with us to Taos. They're afraid of the Apaches.
Safety in numbers, Mac.
The Santa Fe Trail has now become a pretty dangerous road. The Jicarilla Apache, the Ute, they have become threatened by the increased presence and arrival of other people to this territory.
Misery loves company. All right. Wrap up the spoon. I'm throwing a holster for the Colt.
You got it, Mac.
Maxwell and Jorge lead the group from Colorado into New Mexico.
The Jicarillas are very effective in laying ambushes and in attacking caravans on the Santa Fe Trail. In fact, they essentially shut down the trail in many cases.
Apaches! Take cover!
Under fire from Jicarilla Apaches, Lucian Maxwell may not live to make it home.
Take cover! Come on!
Guiding a group of traders to New Mexico on the Santa Fe Trail, Lucian Maxwell is ambushed by Jicarilla Apaches.
Apaches! Take cover!
And now Maxwell has to transform from guide to leader.
Take cover! Come on!
Maxwell has to take command of this group who are not necessarily fighters.
Pick your shots carefully!
And probably there was always something in him that was capable of doing that.
Maxwell and his traders have more advanced weapons than the attackers, but the Jicarilla have a more experienced leader named Chino.
They're falling back!
Quiet, quiet. Keep your eyes open.
Chino is an experienced leader. He knows when to attack and when to back off. Maxwell and his traders have the firepower advantage, and Chino calls for a retreat, for now.
Let's get back to the fort for more ammunition. Might not need it if we take another way home, but never can tell.
Seemingly victorious, Maxwell leads the traders back to Bent's Fort to regroup. And a week later, they head back down the Santa Fe Trail.
So we're coming around into this valley and look out and see this herd of buffalo. I'd take my shot. And Kit's about to down his buffalo. Bam! He goes down.
Maxwell and his party had every reason to be on their guard, but they stop for an afternoon break. And they're not really mentally or physically equipped to defend themselves adequately.
I don't see him. His horse tripped on a prairie dog hole.
And that is when Chino and the Jicarilla launched their attack.
Get low! Get to cover!
Chino's attack is really perfect in its design. If he had studied at West Point, this is what they would have taught him. His enemy was unprepared, his enemy was exposed, and victory was virtually guaranteed.
This time, better guns won't win out against superior numbers. Lucien Maxwell understands one terrible truth. This is a fight he can't win.
The Jicarillas lay a very careful ambush at Manco Burro Pass. This is one of the hottest fights in all of the history of New Mexico.
On your left!
The Jicarillas had what I refer to as the home court advantage. They knew the land, they knew the terrain, they knew the weather.
They're smart warriors. They don't launch a headlong assault on horseback against Maxwell's men. They use cover. They get in close.
But the Jicarilla leader, Chino, boldly leads his men into battle. A brave act that has almost immediate consequences.
I think you got the leader.
The Jicarilla's leader goes down, but the attack continues.
They're coming up on us!
Even without Chino, the Apache warriors were all trained to fight. So someone else stepped up. There were others that were trained to take his place.
We gotta go! Get to the horses!
The horses are gone!
If you're going to go to war against somebody, one of the objectives is to take what they have. In this case, they took the horses.
Maxwell has no choice but to take command. His friend Kit Carson had always sort of known what to do. And Maxwell has to lean into that a little bit. What would Kit Carson have done?
If we can make it up that ridge, maybe we can hold them off till sundown. Slip away in the dark. Everyone fire, then run. I'll hold them off. You too, George. Now! Go! Get!
Maxwell realizes they're going to have to fall back. Their only hope for survival now is to get to some high ground.
Lucien Maxwell has never had a chance of winning this fight. Now, the question is, can he survive the retreat? Lucien Maxwell is in the fight of his life. And he may have just lost. Luckily, the wound isn't fatal, but staying in this fight will be.
Jorge sees that Maxwell has been hit and is under fire.
Jorge risks his life to get the direly wounded Maxwell to safety. This is an amazing act of selflessness, loyalty, but also courage.
No. Let them think we're dead.
Just barely, Maxwell and his men have survived the battle, but their ordeal has just begun.
Now, Maxwell's party is completely afoot, inadequately armed, low on ammunition, and they're all shot to pieces. But they still have to keep moving. The Jicarilla are still out there. For all Maxwell knows, they are still hunting Maxwell's party. So they begin this trek.
Maxwell and his men now face a nearly 100-mile journey to reach safety in Taos.
Keep your eyes peeled. Luckily, we still have company.
For a leader in a situation like this, you're kind of answering to many masters. You're not going to go a day or so without water. You got to have shelter from the sun. You're being pursued by the Apache. You're potentially bleeding to death. It's a lot to think about.
Need to move. Get to better cover.
Maxwell, he could have said, hey man, I'm the most experienced person here. The rest of you are dragging me down. And he could have struck off in the night by himself and probably had a safer chance to get back. But he's not gonna let them down. Highly competent leaders sacrifice their own safety in order to bring others to safety.
But as the traders slowly make their way through the wilderness, Maxwell has no idea if he'll ever see his wife and infant child again. And for Maxwell and the men under his protection, there may be no safe place. Defeated and wounded by Jicarilla Apaches, Lucian Maxwell and his party must somehow make their way home to Taos without being spotted. Maxwell is safe for now, but soon the Jicarilla are the least of his worries. Maxwell must lead his survivors through miles of open country with almost no food or water.
We're lost. In June in New Mexico, it's oppressive. Even when you get in the shade, that insane heat makes it almost impossible to think sometimes.
Maxwell, look, someone's coming.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us in our hour of death.
U.S. Dragoons!
At the brink of death, Maxwell and his party are saved. Once again, Maxwell owes his survival to his long-standing friendship with the Arapaho.
Through a very bizarre word of mouth, a group of Arapaho heard about this fight at Manco Burro.
They alert some army personnel. Well, this has happened and these guys are wandering around in the mountains. You might want to go find them.
Maxwell and his men were absolutely in a pitiable condition, and it's a wonder that they survived.
But the ball in his neck must be removed
Darling, are you ready?
in a risky and painful operation.
all out.
To do what he did with a musket ball lodged in his neck, it just shows that we got a lot more tenacity hiding in us than we maybe think we do.
Some pal, getting caught up in a scrape like that and I didn't even get an invite? How about that, Jorge?
Figured you'd be too busy getting your name in the papers.
Well, that is just low. How you doing, Hoss?
I'll live.
Well, that's the idea.
He's gone through this considerable ordeal, and it does something to him in a way. He becomes even more determined to settle at Rayado.
Right over there. That's where we'll lay out our new settlement.
All our years on the frontier, never thought we'd be men of property.
I could see it, Kit. And before long, this will be the biggest ranch in the territory.
Maxwell turns his back on adventure. He settles in Rayado with his family and helps usher in a new phase of the West.
2 of clubs.
Maxwell is the rare mountain man who made the transition from explorer to settler. And settle did he ever, to amass the largest personal landhold in the history of the United States.
It was actually 2 million acres. It was just vast. And this marks him as a real transition figure from the old West of Kit Carson and the Mountain Men to the new West of Anglo settlement.
Maxwell understood and appreciated the importance of relationships that were mutually beneficial.
Hello, Luz.
Because it is through those relationships that you learn the languages of the prairies.
Oh.
That you learn the way of doing business on the frontier. And the sort of relationships that are important for survival. Lucian Maxwell's legacy is that he was a force to be reckoned with.